Hey guys, this is James from TeaDB, bringing you InBetweenIsode number 67. So gonna do something slightly different today. Gonna be walking you guys through my stash and just how I store a lot of teas. I think for a lot of people it will seem very messy, and there's definitely some truth to that. But it's kind of like a kid who tosses clothes in a certain fashion. There's a method to the madness, at least in my mind there is. So it's kind of like, oh, over there, that big pile of crap, those are my socks and my boxers, and over there are my pants and stuff like that. So it may not be super clean or whatever to any visitors that I have over, and it might seem a little bit crazy or hectic, but I'm going to walk you guys through all that. Going to be talking about different topics of like how I store certain teas and why I try to store them in that certain way. I will see you guys soon. And you can see me here with my washi tin. So this is a tin that you can pick up from a number of different stores. It's technically Japanese in style. It's covered by washi paper. So it's a double-lidded tin. It's how I store most of my loose leaf teas. So you can see that within here there are some tins from Upton Tea. That's where I get those little tiny tins from. They work very well. It's not a method that I am super anal about these days, but when I was drinking a lot of loose leaf teas, especially greener oolongs or green teas, senchas, it's really nice. It's a really good way to store those, so I recommend it. You can also get smaller ones with different paper around it. Those perfectly hold 2 of the Upton teas, while the larger ones perfectly hold 3. So it's a way to really cover all your bases for tea. So that's one way to store loose leaf tea, and I highly recommend that sort of methodology for especially greener teas in general. Alright, so you can see here I have 2 Pumidors back to back. The one on the left is a mini fridge, and the one on the right is a wine cooler my mom picked up for about $5 from the grocery store. So I just, not the grocery store, the thrift store. So I aired that out. You can see there's a tongue in there. Generally speaking, so you can see it's about 63 relative humidity right now. And we'll have a look at the mini fridge now. So you can see that we're measuring the humidity and the temperature outside as well as inside. So 65 relative humidity, 72 inside the fridge. So you can see that it's consistently kept a little bit higher from the outside world, and that's kind of the idea, to sort of have this self-enclosed like little mini environment, because Pu'erh just it'll age really dang slowly if you don't have some sort of humidity, and worst case scenario could potentially dry out. So we're going to continue to look at a little bit more of the mini fridge here. So it's kind of organized in a way that's very sort of spaced. You can see that on the door there's a lot of just like tools and bricks, stuff that's not full cake size, just because a full cake won't fit there. Generally speaking, I'll use those horse road bags that Yunnan Sourcing sells, just cloth bags, to tong up or create tongs of tea, just because I don't own hardly any tongs of tea. So it's a good way, especially for teas that you're not aging in the super long term, to go. Generally speaking, just looking at the whole Pumidor, you can see that there's a lot of different cakes. The ones that are stored closest to the camera are the ones that I tend to drink the most often. So it's definitely somewhat intentional the way that it's laid out. You can see there's the big 98 Iwu brick kind of sitting there in the middle. In that middle shelf, there's a number of Iwu teas, the Autumn Iwu Yecha, a couple of Yangqin Hao teas, I think the Iwu Chawang, the Sengliu, and the Qizhang, as well as the Fine Pu'erh Da Shui Shan. Top shelf, there's a bunch of other teas, a couple traditionally stored teas, a couple of younger teas, the Daqing Gushu from 2014, Autumn Material from Yunnan Sourcing, as well as Little Walk, Ancient Spirit, bunch of stuff like that. Alright, so I'm going to go on to a couple user questions that Benoit kindly sent to me. So these were really good questions that I think sort of reach towards a deeper level here. How do you store the cakes inside the Pumidor? Tongs, cloth bags, or just straight like that? So generally speaking, I will try to tong any tea that I am not going to drink regularly or I'm trying to age. And by tong, I mean use those cloth bags to sort of create a tong. I'll try to group up similar cakes to each other. So for instance, the Yunnan sourcing Sanhejai is somewhat similar to other Linsong teas. So I'll probably try to store it with other Yunnan sourcing teas from that area, generally around that time period, 2011, 2012. I don't think there's a reason to be super anal. You should be aware that, teas that touch each other will start to smell a little bit like the other tea. Do I have any fans or have a ritual of some sort to have some air movement or recycling in the Pumidor? It's also a good question. The mini fridge gets opened fairly regularly just because all of the teas that I want easy access to in the Pumidor are right there. And the wine cooler gets opened a lot less frequently. I do try to open it up at least once or twice a week just to get some fresh air in there. I'm not experienced enough to know, that's a terrible thing or that's a great thing. I don't have any fans or anything like that recycling air. When would I consider a Pumidor as being 100% filled up? When there is no more room, or would you leave some free space to have more air within the Pumidor? So that's another good question. I would consider a Pumidor filled up. I would consider both of those completely filled up. I do like to have a little bit of space to inject a little bit of humidity. So usually, right now, the humidity for both is right around 65. So I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to crank that up to around 70 or so. So to do that, I'm also similar to Marshall, and I'm in favor of simple solutions. And I've seen some solutions in Hong Kong, and they usually just involve adding a cup of water or something like that, just to give a little bit of extra humidity. So you can see that space at the bottom of the Pumidor where I have that Munghai cake sitting at the bottom, 0622. It's a mini cake. I could move that cake somewhere else and just put a glass of water, and that's probably what I would do if I want to increase the humidity. Another thing to note is that the humidity, depending on what part of the mini fridge you're looking at or the Pumidor, could be a little bit different. So I bought a bunch of humidity measures, both to check against each other, just to make sure that they're measuring about approximately the same, as well as to measure different parts of the Pumidor. Alright, so now we're going to have a look. The last time I'm going to show you guys is kind of how I tin teas. So you can see we're back here at my cabinet. So you'll see that I have a number of these tins. So these tins are all just acquired through Daiso. They cost about $1.50. They are imperfect tins. They are not 100% airtight, which is pretty much kind of what's desired. And the idea is you want to just give some of these teas, specifically humidly stored teas, a little bit of airing out. It also helps to give you easy access to these teas when you want to pull it out. Usually what I do is I will break off about a, half an ounce to an ounce, probably, 3/4 of an ounce of a cake, and then just toss it into that tin. You want to break it up into as loose a form as you possibly can, so you wouldn't necessarily want huge chunks or anything like that. You would want it to be close to Malchow form, so to speak. And it, of course, if depending on the compression, that could be very easy or very difficult to do. Usually, if these teas are humidly stored, that will loosen up some of the compression that's happened over the years. Alright, so some questions. When airing Pu'erh, how much of the cakes do you break up? So 3/4 of an ounce or so. So that's about 21 grams. That's just a guess. You could probably fill up an ounce or less or more. How dry and how long can you keep these under dry conditions? Well, I think that depends on the tea. I think for some of these humid stored teas, I'd be perfectly okay with keeping them in there for a year. I don't know if I would end up doing it for that long, just because I do tend to drink those teas a lot. So if you were to tin up something younger, it's probably not that great of an idea. I think it will change and could potentially dry out, so similar risks to sort of some of the Marshall and posts about tea drying out. Do you also keep some of these tin teas inside the Pumidor? Yes, I do keep the caked form of many of the teas in the Pumidor. They're also not the super high priority teas of my Pumidor. If the cake dries out a little bit, I'm in Seattle, so I'm not in Arizona or Nevada where it's super dry. So I'm not as worried about the teas drying out. So if I had to choose between a really nice tea that I'm looking more for the future or that tea, I could potentially go either way. I do one other use of the Pumidor is for sort of conditioning samples. If you have teas that you think have been samples that have been sent and you think they're dried out or whatever, toss them in the Pumidor for a week or two, or even better, a month, and then try that tea again and see what it tastes like. It can just be really helpful for sort of rehumidifying the sample or conditioning it, so to speak. So I think that just about answers all of the questions. So thank you guys for tuning in. Let me know how you guys like this episode. Hopefully it was informative in some form or another, and I will see you guys next time.